Guys, welcome to MyGuy Reviews. We're going to talk about the differences between the TV show 13 Reasons Why and the book which it's based on. If you didn't know, the Netflix hit TV show that's currently on there, the whole 13 episodes, is actually based on a book. Now there's a lot of differences between the book and the TV show, but there's a lot of controversy around the TV show, which may or may not have been around when the book was released, because it's a book and it's seen differently for some reason. But when the Netflix TV show came on, of course, we had the big warning signs and kind of these are adult themed TV show and the themes that are going through the show, So we're just going to take a look down at the major differences between the TV show and the book. Now, the first one, and most probably the kind of like the key one, I reckon, is that in the TV show, we follow Clay's character, and he's listening to the tapes, and he confronts most people throughout the listening of the tapes as he speaks to each and every one at various times, trying to understand what's going on and try and piece together what could be true from what Hannah's saying to what's not. But it's kind of paced over quite a while, maybe a couple of weeks or maybe a few days. Can't really put my thing on it. But in the book itself, Clay actually listens to all the tapes in one night. Now, there's a moment where Tony even says to him, he goes, "You're the slowest yet at listening to these tapes." And he even told Alex even says to Clay, "I listened to them all in one night. I binge listened to them. I listened to them in one sitting." Now, that, of course, is something that's different, but it plays so much better in the TV show because it gives you a chance to develop the characters, him to go see various people, like when he confronts people throughout and how they affected Hannah, also to the point where he's just kind of reliving the moments that him and Hannah spent together, be it in the cinema, be it in school, be it at the parties, all those kind of aspects. It works really well. Prefer the TV version to the book version for this. And when I read the book and it was in the book and you're kind of like following the character and listening to the tapes with him, it made sense and you really were engrossed and kind of followed that journey. But in terms of TV and almost, I don't want to say the word cinematically, but to be able to see it come out visually this way works so much better. And since kind of like the way it all works here is much, much better. I mean, there are aspects where you just think, if only he did listen to it, but no, I prefer the slow burner on that. One of the other things, during kind of like again, I think it's more because of visually striking imagery. There are scenes within that we see Clay when he's at the basketball game, or I think it is, and he sees kind of Hannah's image in the center ring. Those things, or those hallucinations that he has of Hannah bleeding out in the gym, at the school dance, none of that actually took place in the book. I think it's more of a visually kind of aid to kind of show us the main difference and kind of visually show us that aspect of it, which was quite striking as it is when it comes to the end of the whole series anyway. But that's a key kind of difference as well. He doesn't. Another difference is kind of Clay's injury as well. Now, in the book, his injury is different, but in the TV show, of course, he gets hit on the head, and we see the kind of the plaster. And the main reason to have the plaster on the head is because when he goes back and forth, and we have the non-linear kind of approach, which works amazingly well in the TV show, we can tell the difference between what's kind of current day and what was the past. And also you'll notice it with the color as well, because the past is kind of it's more bright, it's more vibrant, but as modern day comes along, it's more dark, it's more dull, because something's terrific, horrific has happened, and hence why you're kind of living in the aftermath of it all. And that's really good. And in terms of kind of the back and forth as well of the whole thing. Now, there is something which I'm trying to wrap my head around, which was about Courtney, and kind of like she's the one, I believe, who instigated that picture and kind of started to spread rumours about it, and it wasn't the way it was kind of captured in the TV show. She's kind of more at fault in the book, I believe, than she is in the TV show. Now, the other key thing that's kind of very different from the show to the book is the order of the tapes. Now, there are still 13 tapes, and there's kind of a reason why. But in this, the TV show, Clay gets the tapes, and he then passes it on to the 13th person. But he, at that point in the TV show, is person number 11. But he chooses to skip person 12, and instead, he passes them on to 13. Now, listen to the review, and I'll kind of like explain who number 13 is and stuff, the spoiler review. So it's kind of all broken down there. But for those who haven't seen the TV show, Clay simply takes his tapes once he's finished it and just gives them to number 13 person who's number 13 on that list. But in the book, Clay himself is person number 9. Once he's finished with them, he merely kind of sends it on to the next person. Another kind of big element of this all is each tape is a person, and at the end of it, you kind of understand their impact, or what kind of reasoning why Hannah may have chosen to do what she did, because that person affected her in a certain way. Clay in the book does not confront someone who appears right at the very end, and again, don't want to give away too much, but doesn't confront Bryce in the book, but he does in the TV show. Now, for those who've seen the show, you'll understand why he did confront Bryce. In the book, for some reason, he doesn't confront Bryce, but I think it works much better. Again, visually, it makes sense, and you can see the character motivations as to why that would happen. The other aspect is there's no lawsuit in the book, but it's good that element exists in the TV show, again, because this simply kind of puts the Bakers in the forefront of the TV show, where we can see the family grieving, we can see their relationship with Hannah throughout, we can see all those aspects which don't really get fleshed out in the book, but they do appear much better, and they are definitely fleshed out, and there's a good arc to their kind of like whole finding out information in the TV show. Another big key thing as well, because there's no lawsuit, Clay's mum's not a lawyer. Those aspects, again, is just for the TV show. And again, I think that worked really well, because then we get to see Clay's family, and kind of we get to see the whole element between him and his parents, and how kind of like they're trying to talk to him, trying to understand what's going on. Those kind of things are more fleshed out again in the TV show. So that's really, really good. So I think they put a lot more time into that, and they really built these characters up. Another thing, and maybe again a big change between the two, is the final kind of like 13 Reasons Why is all about a suicide, and it's handled very differently in the TV show as it is to the book. Now in the book, she swallows a handful of pills and commits suicide that way. Those who've seen the TV show will know it's very different, because she's in the bathtub, and what's leading up to the whole thing, you kind of see hallucinations, and you see images throughout the TV show anyway. But yes, it's very different, and I think again that works really well for the TV, because it's more visually striking imagery to see that than to see someone take some pills and kind of end their life that way. Another thing, again, in the book, which is kind of shown but isn't as fleshed out and isn't as clear as what they've done in the TV show, is Clay and Hannah aren't exactly friends. They know each other, maybe called acquaintances, but Hannah's comments throughout the book is wish they could have been closer. But while in the TV show, the majority of the show shows, Clay pines over Hannah, and those elements that are in the show aren't actually in the film, in the book as well. So it's great, because they show us their characters together to see how they interact together, and I think it works really well. There's a couple more things I'm trying to think. Another key one is Alex. Again, for those who've hopefully seen, Alex at the very end, the final episode, does something as well, and that again is something that you can see is such a good actor. The way he acts the whole way through, that you can see this burden, it's really happened on him, and he really feels remorse and guilt over what he started and what he did. That's tape number 3, I think it is, or 2, but he's one of the very early tapes, and it really affects him. and hence why his character arc does what it does at the end. But in the book, it doesn't do that, and I think it kind of works for this because you really see his struggle throughout, and it's done really good. And I think the last thing I kind of note is Tyler the photographer. His plans at the end of the TV show are shown to be very horrific if he carries out what he's going to plan to do. And the bit where he's got the photos that he's developed and he's got the various people there, and he pulls Alex off of the list, but he's got his people, and he's going to do something which is just insane, and that's not in the book, and that's just purely for television reasons. And one of the reasons why people think the show is kind of making that sort of element and kind of saying, yeah, it's fine, but it's not, because there's a reason for it, and it's kind of understanding those characters and kind of just being there for the kids and kind of seeing what their side is, and kind of just as a parent or as an adult kind of talking to them, and they reaching out at the right times. Tape number 13 really kind of goes through that, but not the way it should have done maybe. But yeah, so that they're the differences between the book and the TV show, those that I can remember off the top of my head. Tell me if you guys saw any, if I missed any out. Hit me up with your comments, hit the big subscribe button, click like for more things. Also check out my review for 13 Reasons Why, plus the discussion and kind of the ending explained.